Welcome to LDS Missionary Moments. In part 3 of our interview with Todd Anderson, we're going to be speaking about the church in Russia, finding people to teach, and his experiences in the life of an American missionary in Russia.
All right, so we talked about church as far as in your apartment. It's a fairly small church. Give us an example of like a very traditional, more than 10 people ward.
More established.
More established. How is that? I mean, and how does it compare to, let's say, the church here in Sacramento?
Well, if you look around, the majority of the world has church-built church buildings. Like the church as an organization has built their own buildings.
Sure.
In Moscow and in the entire mission I was in, that hasn't happened yet. We don't have one building that's been church built. So it doesn't look like anything that you've ever been in. In the St. Petersburg area, they have one or two, I'm pretty sure. But for whatever reason, we just haven't gotten one where I was. So in Moscow, we would have buildings that we would just rent out. We'd rent the entire building. And so it was designed more or less to look like a church building. You know, it's got the green chairs, and they've got classrooms and whatnot, sacrament tables, but as a whole, the services are the exact same. You go,
They have
sacrament, you have
a couple of speakers.
Yeah, you have some speakers from the congregation, and you go to class, you've got a teacher, you study, and you go off, you have another class, teacher, you study, and you go home. And then have meetings.
Was that the largest ward you served in?
The largest I served in was I served in one in Moscow, and the one in Voronezh, they were about the same size. They're about 100.
Lots of youth?
It depends on the ward.
Okay.
Right? And by ward, that just means like a group.
How were they accepted? As far as the youth and being LDS kids or Mormon kids?
The youth were more or less accepted by it. The older generations, they had a harder time just because in the Soviet Union, they were taught there is no God. You know, they're just like flat out no. And then the Russian Orthodox Church came back saying, okay, like we've decided there is now. And this is the only one, like this is the only church. So the older generation has a harder time accepting other denominations because there were a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses, a lot of Baptists, a lot of Seventh-day Adventists. And we all got pretty good persecution there from the Russian Orthodox Church, no matter what denomination you were. But the younger generations, they were more or less accepting. They're just like, yeah, try something new, cool, whatever. Like so,
less ingrained.
Yeah.
I heard I had a friend a long time ago that served in Russia. Were you guys able to dress in full missionary attire, the suit, tie, and all that different stuff with the name tag? Or
yeah.
So
we were.
Did people know who you were pretty quickly by seeing you? Were they familiar with missionaries when you're out on the street?
Not always, no.
I'd say opening a new area. I'm sure some of them didn't
true.
know exactly what a Mormon missionary was.
No one knew.
Everyone knows what they are here, but...
you'd walk up to someone. The majority of the time, they just thought you were trying to sell them something.
Oh.
Really?
They saw a tag. They didn't read it, but they assumed that was like your permission slip. You know, that was your government. I'm okay to sell you stuff.
I'm a certified salesman.
Exactly, yeah. And that's what they thought the majority of the time. You stop and just like, hey, can I talk to you for a second? No, I don't want to buy it. Oh, okay, sorry.
So is that how you contacted most people? Were you contacting them on the street, or were you knocking doors? Or traditionally, we associate missionaries with knocking on doors.
Knocking on doors and riding on bikes. No, we didn't do either of those.
You didn't ride on a bike or knock on a door?
Nope.
Well, that is an interesting mission.
Was that a rules issue or just a circumstance issue?
More of circumstance, just because Russia consists of many very large apartment buildings, and in order
not houses, as we see in like our neighborhoods.
Yeah, no.
Here,
like even if it's a small city, they have these big apartment buildings. They do have cottages in the smaller cities that you can go into, and you could try knocking on those, but they're out of ways. But in the actual city, it's a very big building, very spacious usually, and in order to get in, you need like a magnetic key, or you just like they have a keypad. You dial up, it'll ring to whichever apartment you called.
Sure.
So
security gate.
So if they let you in, then you can go in and knock. But very rarely do You're just like, ring, ring. Hey, who is it? It's the missionaries. No, they just hang up on you.
Right.
So
Did they have
just
like building
we
security?
just
and
seldom
such?
tried, depending on the area. Sometimes they would, sometimes they didn't.
Right.
But
Any families? You taught a couple of guys. Any families? Did you teach any families?
I did not.
So usually single people that you
Yeah.
taught?
Yeah. There was a 9-year-old girl that we taught that was, her parents were members.
Sure.
But, they just wanted her to know more about the church, so we taught her. But other than that, no.
What did you find how did you build up your teaching pool and such was it mostly just out on the street talking to people?
Yeah, that was the majority of it. We would go out and we would just stop people on the streets. If somebody's sitting on a bench, we'd go and talk to them. We'd talk to people on the metro. We'd talk to people on buses. We would try to talk to all the taxi drivers that we used. In the stores, the clerks and the cashiers, just anywhere you were going, you were trying to do it because we couldn't track that stereotypical, go door to door. You couldn't do that. Well, you could, but it wasn't as
Did you have
effective.
any kind of special experiences contacting like that out on the street? Anything that you didn't expect?
What do you mean? Like dangerous, not expecting? Or
No.
awesome?
Just maybe maybe a little bit more of an intense discussion with somebody that got deeper or more spiritual in some ways than what you might expect a conversation on the street to be.
Yeah. A good chunk of the time we would end up talking to somebody and they're just like, yeah, I've got some free time. Like, what do you have to say? And start talking, get into it. We start bringing up spiritual things, about God and about resurrection and living after this life. And more than often, if people were willing to sit and listen, they would start talking about their family, about grandparents that have passed or something, because everybody loves their families, obviously, but Russians, they are some of the most loyal people you can ever deal with. And in my opinion, once you become their friend, you are their friend, and you have to do something really badly to get off that list. But they would get so emotional about these people, and we'd let them know, just yeah, you're gonna see them again. That's a promise. How do you know? Well, you ever heard of this book? And bring out the Book of Mormon and start teaching them about the gospel. These people, they would just listen, they'd soak it in, and they loved it. And unfortunately, there was just that big scare. It was just well, you're new, you're not Russian Orthodox. I don't like it.
So what do you think is going to happen over the next few years? Do you think that fear is just going to kind of fade away? Did you see it start to fade away? Did it get worse?
Honestly, I don't know. I hope I don't get in trouble for this, but I think if we give it another 10, 15, 20 years for this older generation to die off, it's going to explode.
It's kind of
people are going to be more accepting.
That's a reasonable thing to say, though. I would think. When you've got such an ingrained cultural influence like that Russian Orthodox Church, I could see that as being a fair statement, though.
Yeah, in my opinion, that's exactly just what it is. Because, I had one guy, way good friend, and he was like, "Yeah, I want to listen to you, but my grandma says no."
Right.
It's oh well, I respect the family, I understand, but that's sad.
And sometimes it just takes time to break into an area.
So it sounds a little bleak every once in a while. What kept you going every day?
Knowing that I only had 2 years to do it.
And it's a sprint.
It's an urgency.
That's what you're saying.
thing.
Not that you want to go home, but that you it's a very short time.
Yeah, I had already lived 20 years, and now I only have 2 years to wear this badge. That says okay, I'm certified to do this, and then you go home and you take that badge off and you're not allowed to put it back on. And it's sort of weird to think about, but
Sure.
yeah.
Everybody wants to know kind of about P-Days every once in a while, which is a preparation day. Missionaries, for people who don't know, you have 1 day a week to kind of get your affairs in order, to wash your clothes, to shop, and then to play as well. What did you guys do on your P-Day that might be unique to Russia? Or we might all determine that's pretty similar to South Dakota and Kentucky and South America.
Well, you could go to museums and have fun there.
So far, it's the same.
If they were open. almost every single museum that I'd seen was closed on Monday, and our P-Day was Monday.
Oh.
So
Ouch.
if you found one that was open, you could go. But other than that, the rest was forbidden.
Well, what did they like
Really?
to do? What did as far as a game or a physical activity, a sport? What did you guys do? That was kind of a thing for your mission.
Like I said, when it comes to gradually changing, at the beginning we were allowed to do different things. You could meet together and have fun as a group of missionaries, and you can go out and play frisbee. We would do that, play soccer or something. But towards the end of my mission, you weren't allowed to meet up in groups at all. You couldn't go out without a shirt and tie. Just anything to draw attention to yourself, you couldn't do. Because we didn't want anyone to say like, "Hey, these Americans over here, like,
They're causing trouble.
yeah, these little hooligans." Oh man! So we just honestly, the majority of my P-Days towards the end of my mission was wake up, study until 11, have lunch, about 12, go right home. But riding home, depending on which area you were in, you had to either find a mail office, pay them to use their internet, and ride home. That was usually what we did. And then, so at this point, it's about 1:30. Then you go grocery shopping. You need to get on the metro, go to a grocery store, walk from there, get on the metro, go back, walk home. At this point, it's 4 o'clock. So you go home, you clean for an hour, and you have dinner, and you go back to work.
There you go.
So when it came to a resting day, there really wasn't much.
Did that kind of hurt morale for a while dealing with that, or did everybody kind of understand the cause behind it and was
When it started,
appreciative?
it hurt the morale. It was just like, what's up with this? Like, we're not even having fun. It's like, oh, well, this is lame. But when we started understanding why, it literally is for our protection. You don't know what people are going to do, what people are going to say. So just don't put yourself out there. And it became a lot more understandable. And people were like, okay, makes sense.
Well, and if I understand correctly, during your mission, there was also a movie that was released about missionaries in Russia, but I can't remember the name of the film.
It's the Saratov approach.
There we go. So,
What was that about?
Yeah, do you know much about the film?
Yeah, I'd seen it. Well, I have seen it since I've been home. It was just about two missionaries that had been kidnapped and ransomed for money.
And was that kind of a regular concern for missionaries? Did they give you kind of the guidelines of here's what to do if you get kidnapped, or was that talked about much?
They always gave us the just in case, yeah, obviously. It hadn't happened in a long while in any of the areas that I was there. People got beat up and mugged, but that happens in America.
Sure.
But nobody had been kidnapped. And so they told us the what if this happens, this is what you do, but it wasn't really a huge threat.
But you probably didn't feel walking down the street like you were really in that much danger, I would assume.
No.
So here's the one question people always want to know: what's something that happened that you didn't want to write home and tell your mom about?
That you can talk about now.
That you can talk about now.
Your mother won't be angry about us telling it.
Because everybody has those experiences, and you're like, I'm definitely not telling my mom about that.
Well, hold on, I have to make sure that this is politically okay to say.
That's it.
Fair enough.
Take a second.
Got to go through the story and make sure I'm okay.
You can give us the gist.
Okay, so here's this one. My companion and I were walking down the street. This is in my first area, Dzerzhinsk. Still don't know Russian. Walking down the street, and these two guys are sitting in a car. They call us over. It's like, hey, come over here. Like, all right, cool. They want to talk to us. That's nice. We walk over, start talking to them. They're cool. They're like, you have accents. Like, where are you from? Oh, we're from America. Oh, way cool. Show us your passport. No. And by the way, like in Russia, that's your identification. You carry your passport everywhere you go, because most people don't have driver's licenses.
Okay.
So in order to get anything, you just show them your passport. So we had our passports on us, but they were hidden. So we're just like, no, we're not going to show you our passport. No. And they kept bugging us for it. We showed them a copy of our passport and our visa, had a piece of paper. We just had the copy of everything. We're like, you can look at this, like it's legit. It's a legit copy. And they got mad and they're like, you think we're stupid? We're like, no, but this is all we're showing you. They get out, it starts to get heated. We start walking away and they grab my companion. I shove one guy off. The other guy comes try to get me, and I just like shove him off. You know, I'm about 6'1".
Yeah, you're not a small guy.
I'm like
You weren't.
I'm not small, but I'm
you're-
not huge by any
Sure.
means. But
You're a different size now than you were 1 month into your mission too.
that's true. I was about 250 pounds, 6'1", with my companion who's 6'3", about 250 pounds. And these guys can't be more than 5'7".
Oh, jeez.
And
so two linemen. Two linemen versus whatever
Two
gets
forwards.
out of the car. Get out of the car.
it was amusing. It was very amusing. But they start grabbing us, and we just like shove them off, and we start walking away. And one guy kicks me in the back as I'm leaving, and I just keep walking. Just get out of there. And then they get in their car and start following us. We're like, oh, snap. So, mind you, where we're at, we're on this monument area, and the streets sort of look like that. You see, like one street's going this way,
It's a box.
and then the other one goes around this way. And right here is just like a big like park. You can just hang out.
Okay.
So there's the circle. We're walking around this way, and they start following us around. We're like, okay, like they're just following us. This is bad. There's no way we can go home or anything. So we go into the building right next to us. We start walking up the steps, knock on the door because it's locked. Can't get in. We're like, oh man. And there's a big snowbank on this side, and they come around this other side and cut us off. So we got building that's locked, their car, snowbank. So we're like triangled in. And so the guys come out like, don't even worry. Like, we're not going to hurt you. Just get into the car, and we'll take you to the cops ourselves. Like, no. Like, we told you we're Americans. We're just hanging out. We're missionaries. And at this point, we don't want to get the church in trouble. So we sneakily just like take off our tags, put them away. And they just keep going, yelling at us. And this lady comes out of this building. She's like, is there a problem here? I'm like, yes, there is. And then these guys just yelling up, they have bombs. They're trying to blow up the building.
Oh, my goodness.
She runs inside, locks the door, calls the cops.
No way.
And we're just like, are you serious? And so,
Welcome to Russia.
Wow.
and so
Week
Now,
one.
when they yelled this, did you know what they had yelled? Because this was pretty early on. Or did your companion tell you about this afterwards?
He had to translate it.
he told me what had happened right then. He was like, they just told her that we have bombs. Like, don't say a thing. Leave it to me. Okay. And so the guys are just like smiling at us like, oh, you're ours. Don't worry. Like, this can all be taken care of if you get in the car. Like, no, we'll wait for the cops. Don't worry. Cops come, AK-47s, get on the ground. It's like, oh, snap. Look at my passport instead. Just give them our passports and like, so what's the problem? Like, you don't have bombs? Like, no. Look at my bag. I've got a Bible and a Book of Mormon.
Bomb. B-O-M.
Yeah. So the cops look at these other guys who said that we had the bombs. Like, what are you guys talking about? Like, oh, well, they were suspicious. What? So the cops look at us like, oh, we're so sorry. Like, these guys are idiots. If they ever bother you again, let us know. Sorry about that. Just don't ever walk up to this building again. We turn around and realize it's the government, like, governor's building. Like, oh, that was the wrong building to walk up to.
You just happened to go to the local government building.
Yeah. So that was inconvenient. We should have read the signs, but so that happened. And we've seen those guys a few other times just walking down the streets and they'll
In that
come over
town?
in that same town. And
So they were like public patrol guys, volunteers.
I don't know, but every single time they just look at us and like tap our leg, where we've got our passport hidden, like inside our pants. Like, still got your passport, huh, Americans? Like, yep, we do.
So we
Smile,
talked
walk
about
away.
a little bit of a transformation that you went through.
Yeah.
You were 6 foot. What you still are 6 feet. You didn't shrink or anything, but yeah, you went through a transformation.
Yeah.
How much did you weigh before you left?
About 250,
What do you weigh now?
190.
190. What happened? Most people go, wow, that's an incredible transformation. You look great.
Thank you. Honestly, it goes back to the simple things. In my opinion, I just stopped eating junk. And one thing that's a lot harder now that I'm home is just not eating after 6. The later you eat, the more it's just going to stay there, And then just the little bit of working out in the morning and then walking all day, I didn't go on any no carb diet or anything. I just started doing things right.
Here's the 19-year-old that dropped weight because he stopped eating junk food
Exactly.
and started exercising.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a quick question. How physically prepared were you for the rigors of a mission?
For my mission, I was all right.
You were all right.
We weren't walking 15 miles a day.
Okay.
We had the metro and buses, and that was very convenient. So we would ride those the majority of the time, unless we were trying to find people to teach, in which case we just walked the streets. But
next question is, what would you tell the Todd Anderson pre-mission? What advice would you give yourself or give him? Now that you've gone through all this, what would you say to him before?
That's a tough question. As weird as this might sound, I wouldn't say anything. Like, I feel everything comes with a purpose, and how it comes, that's how you need to learn it. If I were to tell myself a concept that I needed to know before, maybe I wouldn't have cared about it. Maybe I wouldn't have really learned about it. I mean, maybe just saying be obedient, like do what you're supposed to do. Like, not saying that I didn't on the mission, but the fact that I did brought me to who I am now, and I'm very happy with that. But I don't know. Maybe that's not the answer you were looking for.
No,
No, that's a perfect
we're
answer.
not looking for any answer. I think that Mr. Spock from Star Trek would have agreed with you, because he said don't say anything to anybody. But yeah, you learn you learn as you go, and that's interesting.
Yeah.
I think I might have told myself a few tips prior to going out.
Like, don't eat this.
Just maybe study a little bit more, maybe a couple of things, but that's interesting. An interesting perspective. What are you doing now?
I'm working.
Yeah. What are your goals? What lies ahead for Todd Anderson here going forward?
Well, at this point, I wasn't aware that we could apply for schools while on the mission. So maybe that's one thing I would have told myself. Like, you can. Like,
You can apply for college.
take the time to, like, on P days, stay that extra hour at the mail office applying for schools. I wasn't aware you could, so I
Okay.
didn't. So now all my mission buddies are out at BYU having fun, hanging out together, and I'm here working. But I'm applying for the fall semesters of different schools. We'll see which ones I get into. I want to go into business. Long-term goal, I want to be into hospitality. I want to be a hotel owner. I want to go into the hotel business, white collar side of it.
I gotcha. Friends that you met out there, companions that you met, will you stay in touch with them?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yes, a handful that you consider to be good friends.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Out of companions, there's a good chunk of them. They're just way awesome friends. I still email a few that are still out on the mission, and the ones that are home, we're talking, hanging out. Well, over Skype, hanging out. And then people in Russia too, thank goodness for Facebook, just because you get to stay in touch. And it's great. There's one friend I've got, his name is Jonathan. I baptized him in the city of Voronezh. He's actually from Congo. There are lots of Africans in Russia because they go there to study, and then they go throughout the rest of Europe from there. But yeah, he got baptized, and he's 21 years old, speaks fluent in Russian, English, whatever language they speak in Congo, and French. And he's just way awesome guy, and plans to serve a mission at some point.
So that people can hear the language, give us a little bit of something. Tell me a little about who you are, and give us a typical approach of approaching me. I'm on the metro. What would that sound like in Russian?
Okay. We'll start with that then.
Okay, start with that.
Well, I'd sit down next to them, or they'd sit down next to me, and I'd just say, "Zdraste." It means hi.
Hi.
Hold out my hand for a handshake. Just make it very friendly, something not usual for them. An awkward handshake. They usually respond with, "Do I know you?" Нет. Меня зовут Старейшина Андерсон. My name's Elder Anderson. Я здесь просто как волонтер от Церкви Иисуса Христа Святых Последних Дней. I'm here as a volunteer from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Мы просто делимся очень особенным посланием со всеми о том, как мы можем видеть тех, кого уже нет в наших жизнях. And we're sharing a very special message about how we can see all those people who we love who have already passed from this life. Вам не было бы интересно слышать побольше? Like, would you be interested in hearing a little bit more?
Well, it's interesting. Isn't it fascinating? You're ripping off all these Russian words fluently as can be, and it's only been just a short period of time. I think it's amazing. So
I do too.
Do you think you'll use that going forward? Your Russian?
Definitely plan to. How? I don't know yet. Don't know all the logistics, but I definitely want to.
Having lived in Russia and served there, I mean, obviously you grow to love the people there. Yeah. What would you probably share with your friends and family here about Russia that you don't think that they know, or that you think they should know about the people there?
Summer exists. It gets really hot. Like I had no idea, vodka and snow, that's all that's there in Russia. That's what I was thinking before, but it gets really hot there. And
pretty place, you want to go back?
I want to so bad. It's just not working out monetarily.
You've only been home a few months, so
I know, but
give it some time.
I know, but if I don't go soon, then I'm gonna get into school, gonna get into work. I'm not gonna have any time to ever go back, or money. Plus, if I go back within 5 years, I don't have a second person to take with me. But
anticipating and getting married within 5 years.
that's the max.
Absolutely.
Any more questions?
I guess no. Is there any final thoughts you might want to leave us with about your experience as a missionary in Russia?
It's definitely not all that it cracks up to be. Everybody assumes, you're going on a mission. It's going to be tough. Yeah, everybody knows that. It's going to be fun. Everybody knows that. But you don't really know it until you do it. And there's just no way you can anticipate what's going to happen at all.
You regret it?
No, not at all.
Would you do it again?
It depends. If I don't have to learn another language.
If you could go to Russia again, if you went to Russia again, would you do it all again?
I think I would. If the church would allow us to go out again, I think it would be worth it. Maybe not for the entire 2 years, but
now you feel like you know what you're doing.
But now I know what I'm doing, so it'd be a lot easier to go back out.
It's amazing how that works.
Kind of on a ready to be a husband and a father scale, where do you think you were before you left?
What do you mean, like 1 to 10?
Yeah, 1 to 10. We'll do our scale, 1 to 10.
Well, I don't know, like 4.
4?
Maybe. Like I'd
had a couple of things.
I'd matured a little bit, but didn't know anything about relationships really. I'd had 2 girlfriends, but
where do you think you are now?
Well, obviously I can't say I'm a 10 because
sure.
I don't know anything in the marriage life. I can't say if I'm a good husband.
I'm not
father,
saying you need to get married tomorrow. Anyway, it's just there's this maturing. There's this maturing thing that happens. I looked at my friends that went on missions, and they came home, and they just seemed more mature than the other guys that had simply, I don't know, gone to school for 2 years.
Yeah. Well, I would say I'm definitely at a 7 or 8 or something. I know what to anticipate for the most part. I had companions that I just loved, but didn't at the same time.
Didn't get along with. You have to learn to get along with.
And so
them.
that definitely just helped. We had to learn how to agree with things together, how to make decisions together, how to work together, how to do everything together. And what else is a marriage than doing everything together?
Think that's going to help you in your career as you move forward?
I say yeah.
Yeah.
Got to learn how to make deals with people. And so why not? Same type of thing. Different, but similar.
Well, Todd, we appreciate the time, and we're grateful that you're willing to come and talk to us and share a little bit about your mission. And I think it's a valuable thing for a lot of people to hear these stories that have never met a missionary before, or some that just never get an opportunity to hear these types of things. And it's a great tool for us to kind of share a little bit more about the gospel. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Good luck.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.